Hey everyone, you're listening to Ankur Warikoo on Woice with Warikoo. On this podcast, I talk to you about entrepreneurship, how to grow in life, manage personal finances, handle failures, and a lot more things that just come to my mind. The episode begins. We have a very weird relationship with our parents, don't we? And I think it goes through these three very distinct phases. Phase one is when we're growing up, and our parents are frankly our everything. They're the ones who gave us birth, they're the ones that we look up to, they're the ones who provide us a safe environment. They give us food, shelter, they help us get up when we are down, they help us talk, they help us walk, they feed us, they cuddle us, they put us to bed, they change our clothes, they give us a bath. They're basically everything that we've got. I don't think we consciously know that they're doing all of this, but we clearly know it in our subconscious that these are two people who are very, very, very important. To the extent that we think of them as gods, we think of them as people who cannot make any mistake. We think of them as individuals who are parents first and humans afterwards. And that goes till about, say, our early teens. And then starts the second phase, and a rather interesting one, where we begin to distance from our parents. It doesn't happen to everyone, of course, and it doesn't happen nearly to the same extent with everyone. But there is certainly a shift in how we look at our parents from how we used to in the past. Suddenly, they're not all that cool. They are not all that right. They're not all that godlike. We begin to see imperfections in them. We begin to see them as normal humans. We begin to see where they make mistakes. We begin to see how they are inconsistent. We begin to see how they also lie. They also make mistakes. They also come across as imperfect individuals who are trying to see or project that they are perfect. And I think the big thing that happens when we become teenagers or when we're going through those growing up years is we begin to experience that generation gap where there is conflict with our parents, where we begin to see that our parents perhaps don't understand us or they don't see the world the way that we do. Or maybe the choices that we want to make for our life are very different from the choices that our parents want from us. And that's the phase of rebellion. It's the phase where we know their parents, but we also begin to carve out our own identity, and we often finds that identity clashing with what our parents want from us or from our lives. And I think this phase goes on till about 30 or so. So almost the same phase as the first one in terms of duration. Well, of course, the first one was largely subconscious. Well, till the time we were like 5 or 7, we didn't even know what we were going through. And then when we turned about 13 or 15, we realized, oh, our parents are not what we thought. And then we go on till about 30 or so. And then starts the third phase, which I believe lasts for about another 10, 15 years. And this phase is when we perhaps have our own kids, or we get to that age where our parents had us. And for the first time, we begin to realize that maybe our parents were not all that wrong all along. Maybe there was some truth in what they said. Maybe the way they said it wasn't right, but what they said perhaps held some weight. But you know what? We're busy with our lives. We're going on, working, trying to make our career, trying to make our life. And we're also adults. So, in some way, and unfortunately so, we're kind of ashamed to express our love towards our parents, embarrassed, if I may use the word. We feel it's not adult like to do so. I don't know how many of you have ever gone on to hug your dad. And I still find it very uncomfortable to do so. I can actually go and hug my mom, but it's weird that I can't hug my dad. It's weird that for the longest time, I couldn't tell my mom and dad that I love them. And I'm certain I'm not the only one. And I'm certain it's not something to do with me. Most of you listening to this would perhaps be feeling the same thing. So, this third phase where we recognize that our parents were actually somewhat right. We recognize or we begin to appreciate the sacrifices that are made for us because we now are parents, or at least we've reached that age where we can see how life is not as easy as we thought it was. We also want to express our gratitude and our love for our parents, but we are kind of embarrassed to do so because we're adults and grown ups. And this phase, however long it lasts, is this duality between us wanting to tell them that they're important, but struggling to do so. Wanting to tell them that we love them, but struggling to do so. Until one day when it's too late. When we waited far too long and suddenly something happened that shook us. One of them left us. And we feel this vacuum. Suddenly, this unsettling feeling where we've lost an anchor in our life, somebody that we held in high esteem and we thought was in some way going to be there forever, but not anymore. And that guilt, that regret, that I wish I'd told them how much they meant to me. I wish I'd told them how much I'm grateful for what they did. I wish I told them how much I love them. It's just too heavy to bear. It's just too heavy to bear. And the reason I record this podcast is because we're nearing the first death anniversary of my wife's dad, who left us last year around the same time that you're listening to this podcast. And I hope that this day, this month, continues to act as a reminder to all of us that one day our parents will leave us. And it will be a tragedy if that is the day when you face yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I wish I had told them how much I love them. Don't make that happen. Tell them today. Tell them today how much you love them. Tell them today how much you're grateful for having them in your life. Tell them today how much of you, who you are today, is because of what they did for you as parents. You don't want to live with that regret. You don't want to get up one morning to realize you should have done something all along. And you knew that you wanted to do it, and yet you didn't. Tell them today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Woice with Warikoo. To be notified of upcoming episodes, be sure to subscribe and follow the show on this app right now. Also, don't forget to rate and review the show because that just feels nice. Thank you.